All right, today we're going to dig into an investment thesis for a really interesting company called TopGum Industries. They're an Israeli company that's making some seriously smart moves to take over the US market. What they're doing is, well, they're basically turning candy-like supplements into real deal medicine. So we're going to break down their technology, their super aggressive North American expansion, and the kind of explosive growth that, just might make them a name to watch for any US investor's portfolio. But before we get into the company itself, let's just talk about the market for a second. We are not just talking about your standard gummy bears here. The global market for these nutraceutical gummies is projected to hit over $42 billion by 2030. I mean, that is a massive wave of consumer demand, and TopGum is positioning itself perfectly to ride it. So here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at the big problem in the market that's creating this opportunity. Then, we'll dive into TopGum's unique tech that gives them a serious edge. After that, we'll follow their strategic expansion into the US and look at the financial proof. And finally, we'll wrap it all up into a nice, clear investment thesis. Okay, let's start with the core issue that creates this huge opening. It's something called pill fatigue. And really, it's exactly what it sounds like. People they're tired of swallowing tablets and capsules. It's creating this huge demand for alternatives that you actually don't mind taking. So that brings up a really critical question, right? I mean, it's one thing to make a tasty vitamin C gummy, but how do you deliver precise, powerful doses of complex ingredients or even active pharmaceutical ingredients in something you chew? That's the billion-dollar challenge right there. And this shift is creating a huge vacuum in the market. We're talking about a real clinical need here, especially when you think about kids or older patients who really struggle with swallowing pills. For an investor, this isn't just some fad, it's a fundamental gap for effective, easy-to-take delivery systems, a gap that these enjoyables are perfectly designed to fill. And that, of course, brings us to our key player. TopGum didn't just pop up out of nowhere. They very strategically evolved from a simple candy company into a high-tech global contract development and manufacturing organization. That's a CDMO, and they are perfectly positioned to solve this very problem. You can really see their methodical evolution on this timeline. The absolute key moment was 2018. That's when they pivoted from just making candy into the much higher margin gummy supplement market. That one decision, backed by some smart investment, really paved the way for them to become the publicly traded powerhouse they are today. So how did they pull it off? Well, this wasn't just about making gummies that taste better. It was about building a deep, proprietary technology moat, something that competitors can't just easily copy. And this, right here, is the real heart of the investment thesis. This slide pretty much says it all. Traditional gummies are basically just sugar delivery systems with a few vitamins thrown in. TopGum's patented Gummyceuticals platform completely flips the script. Instead of sugar, they use a prebiotic fiber base. So not only is it healthier, but it can also carry higher, more stable doses of the active ingredients, while tasting better. That's a trifecta that old-school competitors just can't match. The other half of their tech moat is something called TopCap's microencapsulation. And it's actually pretty brilliant. They take the active ingredient, they coat it in this tiny protective shell, which keeps it potent during manufacturing. And then, and this is the key, it only releases once it's in your stomach. What does that mean? It means no gross, bitter aftertaste from vitamins or minerals. It just works. Okay, so having this incredible technology is one thing, but TopGum didn't stop there. They executed this really brilliant and aggressive M&A strategy specifically to conquer their most important market, right here in North America. This timeline really lays out their playbook. First, the 2025 Canadian acquisition gave them a beachhead, a manufacturing footprint. But the real game changer was the move in early 2026 to buy a pharma-grade facility in the US. This wasn't just about making more supplements. This was a strategic leap to be able to manufacture actual medicine in gummy form in the United States. Now, the way they structured this deal is it's incredibly smart. They used a mix of cash and their own stock, which gives the seller a real incentive to make sure everything goes smoothly. The earnout also helps de-risk the whole thing. But the real headline here is that last number, a $60 million backlog. For an investor, that means they didn't just buy a factory. They bought a guaranteed revenue stream for the next couple of years. That is clear, predictable ROI from day one. And the strategic thinking behind it all is crystal clear. This gives them local production for their biggest market, a huge first-mover advantage in making pharma-grade gummies, and critical FDA compliance. From an investment perspective, they are actively de-risking their entire supply chain by spreading it out across 3 different countries. It's a very savvy move. Okay, so we've seen the market, we've seen the tech, and we've seen the strategy. But is it actually working? Let's look at the hard numbers, because this is where the story gets really, really good. So let's just start with the top line. You can see revenue jumped from $45.6 million in 2023 to nearly $60 million in 2024. That's about a 30% increase year over year. That's a really strong, consistent growth foundation. And remember, this is before that major U.S. acquisition even came online. And that strong foundation, it basically became a launch pad. In the third quarter of 2025, their growth just went into hyperdrive. They reported a massive 98% year-over-year sales increase. I mean, they went from strong growth to nearly doubling their sales in a single year. That signals a major turning point for the company. Now, let's put this all into context, because this tells the whole story. Look at the top line. The industry is chugging along at about 14.5% annual growth, while TopGum is posting over 58%. Look at that Q3 growth, 98%. But most importantly, look at the bottom line. Net profit didn't just grow, it quadrupled. This is not just a company growing with the market. This is a company that is actively stealing market share and converting it into serious profit. And it's so important to understand that this kind of financial performance isn't just a fluke. It is the direct result of their business model. By providing these full end-to-end solutions for major global brands, they create these really sticky, high-value relationships that drive the kind of insane revenue and profit growth that we just saw. So let's tie this all together. We've looked at the market, the technology, the strategy, and the financials. Now let's boil it all down into a clear investment case and see what's on the horizon. Okay, here it is in a nutshell. You have a massive market opportunity. Check. You have a defensible technology moat. Check. You have a brilliant M&A strategy that's been executed perfectly. Check. You have the financial proof that it is all working. Check. And you have a huge upcoming catalyst as the first mover into pharmaceutical-grade gummies. And hey, don't just take my word for it. The company's own leadership gets how big this is. The former chairperson, Haggai Stadler, called the U.S. pharma acquisition a strategic leap forward, positioning them to lead the entire global industry. So what's the next big catalyst to watch for? It's a massive one. They are already developing a gummy version of an existing drug that's targeting a market worth an estimated $1.5 billion a year. Let that sink in. With a launch projected for the second half of 2027, successfully capturing even a tiny fraction of that market would completely change the valuation of this company. This is the catalyst that could take them from a supplement company to a true pharma force. So I'll just leave you with this thought. TopGum is making a huge bet that the future of daily medication isn't just about whether it works, but also about the experience of taking it. And as that line between a supplement and a medicine gets blurrier and blurrier, the real question is, are they right? Is the future of our medicine cabinet not just effective, but maybe actually enjoyable?